The train station was unusually quiet that rainy afternoon, the kind of quiet that made every cough, every footstep, every rustle of clothing echo just a bit louder. A cold wind drifted through the cracked windows, carrying the smell of wet concrete and old newspapers. People sat scattered across the benches, heads buried in phones or newspapers, waiting for delayed trains. On the farthest bench, near platform 4, sat a tall man in a dark charcoal coat. His polished shoes, expensive watch, and perfectly pressed shirt made him stand out, but not in a way he wanted to. His face was hidden behind the newspaper, though the truth was he wasn't reading a single word. His mind was somewhere else, somewhere darker, lonelier. This man was Adrian Hale, a widowed CEO known everywhere except here. The world knew him as one of the richest and most influential men in the country. But right now, nothing about him felt powerful. It had been 3 years since he lost his wife, and the emptiness had only grown heavier. He traveled to small towns sometimes just to feel anonymous, to escape the suffocating weight of everyone wanting something from him. Today was supposed to be another one of those silent escapes until he heard a tiny voice beside him. "You broken bar, excuse me, sir, a broken bar, see, can I sit here?" Adrian lowered the newspaper slowly and saw a little girl standing in front of him. She looked about 7 years old, wearing an oversized pink hoodie with cartoon rabbits on it. Her face was pale, too pale, and her eyes carried the tiredness of someone far older. She held a small backpack pressed against her chest like a shield. Behind her, all the benches were either full or occupied by people who didn't even glance at her. Adrian blinked, surprised. It had been a long time since anyone, especially a child, had approached him without fear or expectation. He shifted slightly. "Of course," he said softly, "you can sit." The little girl nodded and climbed onto the bench, her tiny legs dangling off the edge. She sniffed slightly, brushing her nose with her sleeve. Adrian noticed the faint trembling of her fingers. The girl hugged her backpack tighter, trying to suppress a shiver. "Are you waiting for someone?" he asked gently. She nodded at first, then hesitated before shaking her head. "Not anymore." Adrian's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "My mama broken bar, she was supposed to come, but she got sick, and a broken bar and I had to go." Her voice cracked just a little. "I just needed somewhere to sit for a bit." Adrian studied her carefully. Her shoes, worn out and too big, her hoodie, faded, her eyes, worried and lost. She didn't look abused, just a broken bar, neglected. Someone who had been fighting something too hard for too long. He spoke quietly. "What's your name?" "Lily," she whispered. "What's yours?" Adrian paused. Most people recognized him instantly. His name opened doors, made headlines. But here, from this small, fragile girl, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Trust without greed. "My name is broken bar, Adrian." She smiled faintly. "That's a nice name." He cleared his throat, suddenly feeling the weight of the moment settle into his heart. "Lily, a broken bar, are you okay?" She tried to nod, but her voice betrayed her. "I don't feel too good today." But I didn't want to bother anyone. A painful memory surged in Adriana, his wife, sitting in a hospital bed, whispering the same words. "I don't want to bother anyone." He swallowed hard. "You're not bothering me," he said, more firmly than intended. Lily blinked up at him, startled. For the first time in years, Adrian felt something warm stir inside him, an instinct he thought had died with his wife. "Protection." The station lights flickered as an announcement echoed through the speakers. Trains delayed, weather worsening, people grumbling. But in that crowded station, it felt like the world had narrowed to one bench, one stranger, and one sick little girl trying to stay strong. And neither of them knew that this simple request, "Can I sit here?" was about to change both their lives forever. The bus rattled on, its wheels humming against the old asphalt as if trying to soothe the little girl who now sat quietly beside a stranger. The air smelled faintly of dust, old cushions, and rain that threatened to fall but never quite arrived. Outside the window, dry fields stretched endlessly, blurring into soft strokes of gold and brown. The Shah, Ethan Cole, though she didn't know his name, stole a glance at the sick girl leaning her head against the glass. Her small fingers trembled. Her breath came shallow. Her tiny shoes dangled inches above the bus floor. He could tell she wasn't well. A father's instinct still lived inside him, sleeping but never dead. He hadn't thought about his son in almost a year because thinking about him was like touching fire. The girl shifted. A painful cough shook her chest, and she covered her mouth with both hands, as though embarrassed. "You okay?" Ethan asked softly. She nodded, then whispered, "A broken bar get tired sometimes." She couldn't have been more than 7. He noticed her thin sweater far too light for the cold creeping through the bus. Her cheeks had that pale, sunken tone he recognized from hospital corridors. She sat curled up as though trying to disappear. "Where's your mom?" he asked gently. "She's a broken bar at work," the girl said after a moment. "She works at the diner on Maple Road." "She always works. I wait outside till she's done." He frowned. "You take the bus alone?" She nodded again. "I know the way." A child that young, a broken bar riding alone, a broken bar in the evening. He felt a knot form in his stomach. She looked up at him again, eyes soft and painfully trusting. "Thank you for letting me sit by you." "It's okay," he said, forcing a smile. "What's your name?" "Lily." "Hi, Lily." He stopped himself. He hadn't introduced himself as Ethan Cole, the CEO with a billion-dollar empire, since the night he lost everything that truly mattered. So instead he said, "I'm Ethan." She tried to smile, but her lips quivered with another cough. Ethan instinctively reached for the handle above her seat in case she needed support. "Do you have school tomorrow?" he asked. Her eyes dropped. "Number, yeah, broken bar. I don't go right now." He studied her face, the hesitation, the shame. "Why not?" "'Cause I get sick a lot," she whispered, brushing her tangled hair behind her ear. "And the bus is too far to walk." There was more. He knew. Kids never lied well, not about something that hurt. The bus hit a bump, jostling them gently. Lily Winston held her chest. Ethan's heart clenched. "Did a doctor see you?" He pressed gently. She hesitated a broken bar, then finally shook her head. "My mommy says doctors cost money," she said quietly. "But she says I'll get better soon. She just needs more shifts." Ethan stared at her, disbelief shadowed by sadness. A sick child, a broken bar, no proper clothes, a broken bar alone on a bus at dusk, a broken bar, and her mother probably breaking her back somewhere, trying to keep her alive with minimum wage. He wanted to ask more, but Lily suddenly leaned forward and whispered conspiratorially, "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." She looked around first, making sure no one else was listening, except for an old couple asleep near the front and a teenager with headphones. The bus was nearly empty. Then she whispered, "You look sad, like my mommy does sometimes." The comment struck him harder than he expected. He blinked, swallowing the tightness in his throat. "You think so?" he managed. She nodded seriously. "It's your eyes." "What about them?" "They look like a broken bar. Remember too much." Ethan inhaled deeply. Children didn't sugarcoat the truth. They never had. Before he could respond, Lily dug into her small backpack, a old, faded, frayed at one corner, and pulled out a crumpled drawing. She unfolded it with care. It was messy, made with cheap crayons, a broken bar, but the colors were bright. A simple drawing of 3 figures holding hands, a little girl, a woman, and a man. "My mommy says someday a broken bar," Lily whispered. "Someday someone nice will sit with us at dinner. Someone who makes her smile, like before." Ethan felt a sudden sting in his chest. "And is that a broken bar? A broken bar your dad?" he asked carefully. "Number." She shook her head. "He left before I was born." Ethan swallowed. His voice wavered when he asked, "And you think this someone is coming?" Lily looked at him with sudden seriousness. "I think a broken bar. He's already close." Outside, thunder rolled far in the distance, making the windows tremble. Ethan stared at the drawing again. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected to feel anything. He lived his life like a ghost, eating alone, working alone, sleeping in silence. He avoided children's laughter like it was poison, because it reminded him of the little boy he buried. He had boarded this bus today trying to escape a meeting, a boardroom, a life that felt hollow. But this little girl, a broken bar with her sickly smile and brave eyes, a broken bar, was tugging at wounds he thought had scarred over. She leaned her head against his arm now, too tired to sit straight. The trust in that small gesture nearly shattered him. "Does your mommy know you're sick?" he asked softly. "Yes, a broken bar, but she says we'll be okay if she gets one more shift." "She always says that." "Does she know you're not going to school?" "She tries," Lily whispered, voice weakening. But she works nights and mornings. She forgets things sometimes. And a broken bar. I don't want to make her sad. Ethan exhaled long and slow. This child was suffering silently so her mother wouldn't. He wanted to grab the bus driver and demand he drive them straight to a hospital. He wanted to call an ambulance. He wanted to call down the sky if it meant helping her. But instead he remained calm, gentle, steady. "Lily," he said softly, "after we get off this broken bar, would you like me to walk you to your mom?" Her small face brightened instantly. "You will, really?" "Yes," Ethan said, his voice firm for the first time. "I won't leave you alone." Her little hand reached out and took his. Her fingers were cold, the broken bar too cold. "Thank you," she whispered, closing her eyes. The bus continued along the lonely road. Raindrops began tapping softly against the windows. Lily finally drifted to sleep, leaning against him with complete trust. And death on a broken bar. For the first time in years, a broken bar felt purpose beginning to spark inside his hollow chest. He didn't know yet what he would do, but he knew this. He would not let this girl suffer. Not tonight, not ever again. And when they reached her stop, a broken bar, everything in his world would change. The next morning, the hospital room felt different, like someone had opened a window to let hope drift in. The sun painted warm streaks across the floor, and for the first time in days, the air smelled less like antiseptic and more like possibility. Claire lay in bed, little chest rising and falling peacefully after a long night of fever. Beside her sat Daniel Hardman, the billionaire CEO who had once been the loneliest man in the city, and now leaning forward with his hands clasped, watching her breathe as though she were the most important person in the world. Her mother, Emily, sat across from him, exhausted but smiling softly. "She's really taken to you," she whispered, trying not to wake her daughter. "She's never broken bar connected with anyone like this since her dad passed." Daniel kept his eyes on Claire. "She reminds me of my Lily," he said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken her name out loud in 2 years. The grief didn't choke him this time. It settled beside him like an old friend finally ready to talk. Lily was sick too. Always so brave. Always smiling, even when it hurt. Emily's breath caught. She hadn't known. He had never said, "I'm sorry," she murmured. He shook his head. "I used to come to this hospital every night, sit in the same chair and hold her hand. The same beeping machines, the same prayers. When she passed a broken bar, I stopped coming altogether. Stopped talking. Stopped caring." He exhaled shakily. "Yesterday was the first time I came back." Emily understood now, not just why he was gentle, but why Claire had reached him so easily. Children like her, so soft, fragile, but full of spirit, had a way of touching wounds grown-ups tried to bury. Suddenly, a small voice piped up. "You came back," Claire said sleepily, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. Daniel turned immediately, smiling. "I told you I would." "People say things they don't mean," she mumbled. He leaned closer. "Not me." She studied him with the seriousness only sick children possess. "Are you staying today?" "I'll stay as long as you want." Her thin arms reached toward him, and he gently picked her up, settling her against his shoulder. Emily watched the scene with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Gratitude because Claire hadn't smiled this much in months, and fear because this was a man with a life so far above their reach it felt dangerous to hope. But Claire didn't care about social gaps. She cared about warmth, presence, love. And Daniel, for the first time in years, felt needed again. Later that day, doctors returned with update tests, real ones this time, filled with charts and terms and cautious optimism. "Her condition is treatable," one doctor explained, "but the medication she needs is a broken bar expensive." Emily felt her stomach knot. She'd heard the word expensive too many times in the past year. Rent was already a struggle. Food was a daily equation. She braced herself for the rest, but Daniel gently placed a hand over hers. "How much?" he asked calmly. The doctor named the figure. Emily nearly collapsed. Daniel didn't flinch. "Start treatment immediately." Emily jolted. "No, you can't. This is too much. We don't even know you." He turned to her with a softness she didn't expect. "You know enough. You know I lost a daughter who would have been the same age as Claire. You know that I can help, and I need to." His voice shook, not from weakness but truth. "Let me do this." Emily's eyes welled with tears. She wanted to refuse. Her pride begged to, but Claire's life mattered more. She nodded. "Thank you." she whispered, voice breaking. Claire tugged on his hand. Does this mean I get to go home, Mr. Daniel? He knelt beside her bed. It means we're going to try everything to make you healthy, and I'll be here. Promise? I promise. Over the next week, Daniel visited every single day. He brought coloring books, soft blankets, her favorite juice boxes, and stories from his travels. He brought laughter into the room and calm into Emily's trembling heart. Claire's recovery was slow but steady, her cheeks filling with color again, her giggles returning like shy birds finding their way home. One evening, as Claire slept, Daniel and Emily stood in the hallway, the city lights flickering through the windows behind them. You don't have to keep doing all of this, Emily said softly. We'll never be able to repay you. I'm not doing this for repayment, he replied. I'm doing it because you and Claire remind me that life isn't over for me. Emily met his eyes and saw not the billionaire everyone feared, but a man who had been left with too many silent nights and too many empty rooms. You're not alone anymore, Daniel, she said gently. His breath caught, the words hitting deeper than he expected. Neither are you, he said. A quiet moment passed, a moment so charged it felt like even the fluorescent hallway lights softened out of respect. When the day finally came for Claire to be discharged, she jumped into Daniel's arms with the kind of uninhibited joy only children possess. You're coming to visit me, right? She demanded. Daniel laughed. Visit you? I was hoping I could take you both out to dinner first. Emily blinked. Dinner? With us? Why not? He asked. You're my favorite girls. Emily blushed, and Claire grinned. Does that mean we're like a broken bar, your family? The question hit him straight in the chest. Family, a word he had avoided for years, afraid of the ache it carried. But looking at them now, Emily's warm, hopeful smile and Claire's bright eyes, he didn't feel fear, he felt home. He knelt to Claire's eye level. If you'll let me, broken bar, I'd like that very much. Claire squealed and hugged him again. Emily's eyes sparkled with tears she didn't bother hiding. Danielle, broken bar, thank you for everything. He shook his head. Thank you, both of you. You brought me back to life. The three of them walked out of the hospital together, hand in hand, into a world that suddenly felt bigger, softer, and full of second chances.